Hello everyone, this is part 71 of What If Naruto Meets the Nine Tails Early, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Everyone please place your hats on the table, ordered Mifune as the 5 cages obliged. The 5 leaders of each of the major hidden villages were seated around a semicircular table with Lord of the Land of Iron seated at the very middle. Seated on the outside of the room were the Jinchuriki who were not cages, Fu, KB, and Uzumaki Naruto. My name is Mifune. I will be your moderator, announced Mifune. The 5 of you have been called here to discuss the growing threat of Akatsuki. Reikage Dono, as you were the one who called this meeting, would you please lead us off? The Reikage nodded before speaking. As you're aware, Akatsuki has been targeting the Jinchuriki over the past few months. They've managed to capture 2 and almost succeeded in capturing a 3rd. They need to be stopped. We are all familiar with just how powerful the Jinchuriki and Biju are. They cannot be allowed to fall into the hands of these terrorists. How do you know that Akatsuki has, in fact, captured 2 Biju? Asked the Mizukage. Flashback. Just as the ceiling completed and Yugito's lifeless body fell to the ground, Naruto looked up and saw a second eye on the giant Gedo-Mizo statue open. So Matatabi wasn't the first to be sealed into that accursed statue, grumbled Kurama. Huh, how do you know? Asked Naruto. Can you sense the Biju inside the statue? No. Once inside the statue, their chakra gets mixed in with the remnant chakra of the Juubi and I can't tell them apart. However, the eyes tell the tale, 9 eyes, 9 Biju. So, 2 eyes open, damn that means they got someone else. End flashback. Naruto had made certain to tell that little tidbit to the Hokage and Reikage during the debriefing, something that B and the Hachibi were able to back up. The status of Jinchuriki are usually kept close to a village. Unless, the Mizukage paused for a minute. Reikage Dono, has Kumo lost its Jinchuriki to these Akatsuki? The Reikage growled. He didn't want to put himself out like this, but in order to try and bring about an international consensus, something would likely have to give. Besides, he was certain Kumo wasn't the only one to have lost something. While it is unfortunate to say, yes, Kumogakure has lost one of its Jinchuriki to Akatsuki, spoke the Hokage. As for the Idini of the second Jinchuriki taken, I believe that's why you asked the remaining Jinchuriki to attend, is it not? The Reikage nodded, brushing off the Mizukage's implication. Last I recall the Ichibi was in the hands of Tsunagakure. And yet I see no Jinchuriki from Tsunagakure, said the Tsuchikage. Has Suna also fallen to the point where they can no longer protect their valuable weapon? From the seats where the Jinchuriki were seated, Naruto clenched a fist as anger built up inside him already. Yo, calm down Naruto, let's not start the show, Bakayaro Konayaro, replied B as he picked up on Naruto's frustration at the Tsuchikage's comment. However, to say B wasn't disturbed either was wrong. He just brushed things off easier than his blonde counterpart. Sorry, Octopops, but I can't help it, gritted Naruto. I can't stand people who just treat them as weapons. No, rebutted Gaara. That is because I am the Jinchuriki of the Ichibi. I see, said the Tsuchikage. The Nibi, Reikage Dono. Silence followed the Tsuchikage's question. I see. So Kumogakure has lost the Nibi to Akatsuki. The Sanbi, Mizukage Dono. Kirigakure still controls the Sanbi, assured the Mizukage. And yet where is your Jinchuriki? Asked Tsunade. I do not see anyone representing Kirigakure's Jinchuriki. Why would I bring my village's Jinchuriki into a meeting between thieves and liars? Asked the Mizukage calmly as he looked at his fellow cages, particularly the Hokage and Reikage. While they didn't like the implications behind the Mizukage's statement, it was too early to let tempers flare. No, the Sanbi dwells inside the Mizukage's shell, oh yeah, called out B as everyone turned their attention on their fellow cage. So, you are the Sanbi's Jinchuriki? Mizukage Dono, asked Tsunade. The Reikage's fist S on the table. Any you refuse to say anything. Last I checked, who the Jinchuriki were is normally a closely guarded secret amongst villages, replied Yagura. Maybe if you would spend less time on driving your country apart with that atrocious civil war, then you'd know these aren't the days of my grandfather or his brother, replied Tsunade. Perhaps, but even then, there hasn't been a change in the way traitors are dealt with, said Yagura as the normally calm Mizukage sent a rare glare at B. The Yonbi, Tsuchikage-sama. Like Mizukage Dono said, why would I willingly bring Iwa's Jinchuriki here? Responded Onoki. Kumogakure's already missing one Jinchuriki and they've been known for the desire to acquire new powers. Who's not to say you, Reikage Dono, aren't the one trying to capture the Jinchuriki? At least I don't have a history of hiring Akatsuki terrorists to do my dirty work, growled the Reikage. 4 Jinchuriki down and the tensions were already starting to rise. Tsuchikage Dono. You referred to your Jinchuriki as singular, analyzed Gaara. I thought Iwagakure was in possession of 2 Biju, the Yonbi and Gobi. This brought a little smile to the Reikage's face, paybacks AB. So, you opened up yourself to Akatsuki, only for them to SU in the back, rebutted A. Please Reikage Dono, if you must know the whereabout of the Gobi, ask the Namikaze bastard sitting over there, scoffed the Tsuchikage as he pointed towards Naruto. Needless to say, this claim surprised a few people and Tsunade was about ready to L the Tsuchikage's aging spine out of his back. It's fine, Tsunade-sama, waved Naruto as he tried to defuse the situation if even slightly. It's not like it's going to be a secret for much longer anyways. So, you really are their son, affirmed the Reikage. Got a problem with that? Growled Tsunade. While the Reikage seemed to be on her side, the last thing she needed was a second nation after Naruto. No, I had my suspicions after the Chunin exams. Once I saw his entry in Iwa's bingo book, I started to believe that perhaps it was true. Besides, while we may have been enemies, his father was one of the few people who truly had my respect, replied the Reikage. You say Han, Tsuchikage-sama, said Naruto. While it is true that we fought, Han abandoned the fight and used it as a cover to leave. Where he went, even I don't know. PFT. A bunch of lies if I ever heard it, argued Onoki. Just face it, you're just like your father. While it's true that I've only done so to protect those important to me, replied Naruto. What the Yondaime did was during a time of war. A war which was started when you invaded the Land of Fire, stated Tsunade. To still be consumed by hatred after all these years, spoke Gaara. I understand if you don't yet understand the workings of war, being so young, Kazekage Dono, but the Yondaime's of my men isn't something that can just be overlooked, argued the Tsuchikage. This infuriated Naruto even more, but before he could respond, Gaara spoke again. While you are correct in that I was not around for it, I am familiar with Third Shinobi War and how events unfolded. The army you unleashed was bent on wiping the Land of Fire off the map. They razed numerous villages to the ground without a care for the innocent. If the Yondaime Hokage didn't do what he did, many more innocent lives would have been lost in the process, said Gaara. As a Kage, it is our job to ensure the safety for our people. We do whatever it takes to prevent harm from being brought to them, even if that means an army built to them. However, from that we must forge a path forward and away from the hatred of the past. Or has your age made you forget what being a Kage is truly about? Why you? Enough! Shouted Mifune as he tried to restore some sense of order to this meeting. So, the whereabouts of the Gobi are unknown. At best, he's in a faraway country, and at worst. Back to the matter at hand. Mizukage Dono, what's the status on the Rokubi? Asked the Reikage. When it was determined that the suppression seal on him couldn't be removed, he had no use for him, replied the Mizukage, sending a glance towards Naruto. There were many things that statement could have meant. One was that Kirigakure their Jinchuriki, so that the Rokubi would be released to reform a few years later. Tsunade-sama, if I may, said Kakashi as he appeared beside Tsunade, placing a bingo book before her. However, this wasn't an ordinary bingo book. This was a special bingo book issued only to the Anbu or hunter ninja of a village. The entries in this book were of missing ninja that a village didn't want leaked to the outside world. For one to fall into foreign hands was extremely rare. Where'd you find this, Kakashi? Asked Tsunade. A colleague of mine gave it to me just before we left. Said he picked it off an enemy who attacked him on a mission, an enemy bearing a Kirigakure hunter nin mask, said Kakashi. I apologize for not telling you sooner, But with the summit, I felt it best to tell you after, until I came across this page. So, the Rokubi Jinchuriki is missing as well, mused Tsunade. And why didn't you say anything? A roaming Jinchuriki is not something to take lightly, demanded the Raikage. Because the Rokubi is Kirigakure's Biju and as such, we will be the ones to recover it, spoke the Mizukage. I can't have one village trying to steal what is ours, especially a Biju, considering those amongst us with a proven history of taking other villages' Bijus. That comment was directed solely at Tsunade and the green-haired girl behind her. Yes, Tsunade, care to explain how Konoha came into the possession of Takagakure's Jinchuriki? Asked Onoki. Shortly after the Chunin exams in Kumogakure, Fu's village made an attempt on her life, explained Tsunade. It was clear that they didn't even attempt to remove Nanabe from her based on the nature of the attack. They just saw her and the Nanabe as nothing more than a burden and a plague, making the decision to try and eliminate both at once. Those involved in the attack simply left her for S to drift down the river where she was recovered by some of my shinobi. After being nursed back to health, it was decided that the best course of action was to keep her in Konoha. Interesting. And what did Takagakure say in regard to this? Asked Yagura. The Tsuchikage got a smirk out of this as Tsunade struggled to find an answer. I take it Takagakure is unaware that you are holding its Jinchuriki hostage? Asked Onoki. I apologize, Raikage Dono. It seems as if I was mistaken about Kumogakure being the one targeting the Biju. If you think I would just hand over Fu to Takagakure so they could just K her, then you must be even more senile than I remember, growled Tsunade. While I had absolutely no intentions of brining another Jinchuriki into Konoha, I wasn't about to send her back to those dogs in Takagakure who think they could just toss her aside until they needed her to save their sorry A. Perhaps if you had viewed your Jinchuriki as an actual person, Han wouldn't have abandoned you. Sparks were flying between the Hokage and Tsuchikage by this point in time. And the Raikage, who had hoped to reach some sort of international consensus regarding Akatsuki, could feel this summit slipping further and further out of hand. It was then that Mifune's actions were required again to bring this discussion back under control as the leader of the Land of Iron stood up. This is no time to be squabbling amongst oneselves. Akatsuki is a very serious threat to this delicate balance of power and one that requires an equally serious response. I agree, Kumogakure still maintains possession of the Hachibi, said the Raikage, wanting to move on before even he got pulled further into the mess the old fence-sitter was causing. Hey yo, the one and only KB, but call me Lord Jinchuriki, yeah, rapped KB. If someone could ease the tension in the room, it was B as everyone's sweat dropped. As for the Kyuubi, Uzumaki Naruto is currently his Jinchuriki, replied Tsunade. The blonde behind her gave his signature grin. So, 2 Biju have been captured by the Akatsuki. One is the Nibi and the other is either the Gobi or Rokubi. However, unless their whereabouts can be confirmed, I think it is best we operate under the assumption that Akatsuki is currently in possession of 3 Biju, announced Mifune. The question now is, what are you going to do to address the issue of Akatsuki? Konohagakure and Sunagakure are already working together to combat this menace, said Tsunade. In the past months, we have managed to K 3 of their members, Sasori of the Red Sands, Kakazu, and Uchiha Itachi. And one member, called Hidden, has been captured and is currently being interrogated. So, 4 Akatsuki members have been defeated, mused Yagura. It seems like there has been much headway made in combating these terrorists than I had originally believed. Yes, I can't understand how you're having a problem with them, Raikage Dono, if the likes of Konoha and Suna could see such success against them, added the Tsuchikage. It was through joint efforts that we were able to bring them down, stated Tsunade. Only by cooperating with one another can we hope to eliminate them for good. If it is aid in defeating the Akatsuki you are seeking, I am afraid I have my own issues that need addressed which are preventing me from sending my resources elsewhere, spoke the Mizukage. So, you're content to just sit by and watch as Akatsuki threatens to unleash an impending disaster upon our world? Asked Gaara. 4 Akatsuki have already been defeated. What sort of threat to the world could they possibly pose? Asked Yagura. Besides the fact that Akatsuki now controls 3 of the Biju, beings capable of immense destructive power, the object they are using to contain the Biju brings new concerns to light, said Tsunade. I think it's best I leave this up to you, Naruto. The thing they're sealing the Biju within is called the Gedo Mazo, explained Naruto. Apparently, it's the body of the Juubi, the 10 tails, that can only be revived when all 9 biju are sealed within it. I don't know much more about this Juubi, but if what the legends say are true, then this thing is capable of destroying continents with a flick of its tail. The Juubi is hardly an old fairy tale meant to scare the kids into going to bed, scoffed the Tsuchikage. Where did you hear such a preposterous thing from? The biju themselves, replied Naruto. How can you be certain what they are telling you is true? Asked Yagura. The biju themselves are inherently of chakra full of malice and evil. Being manipulative is just part of what they are. If you've ever tried to make a nice conversation with them, you'd know that's not always the case, argued Naruto. I know there are some of them that are kind of crazy, but maybe it's more of a misunderstanding on our part. I can assure you that the Sanbi is anything but friendly, said the Mizukage. I've been struggling to suppress its immense anger and rage ever since it was sealed within me. They can't be reasoned with, only controlled. Within Naruto's head, he could hear another voice. It was slightly foreign to him, yet he was certain he heard it before. Kurama, definitely an interesting one you have there. I'll give the kid that. So, you've noticed it too, Gyuki, replied Kurama. I can sense Isabu. I know he's inside the Mizukage. But I cannot reach him, said the Hachibi. What the Mizukage is saying about Isabu, it doesn't sound like the Isabu I remember, said Kurama. His own senses were telling him that the Mizukage was correct. The Sanbi was filled with rage for some reason. He was always so reserved and quiet, and nearly impossible to get angry. But I can feel it, his hatred and rage. What happened, Isabu? What is it that made you angry? B shot a look over to Naruto and the blonde caught it, the two nodding in understanding as their biju conversed with one another. Mizukage Dono is right, replied the Tsuchikage. Those things have never been more than a source of rage and destruction. And as a village's ultimate weapon, it's Jinchuriki's duty to channel that rage into power. Speaking of rage, Naruto could feel his rise as he listened to the Tsuchikage ramble on about the biju being nothing more than raging beasts and weapons. He hated guys who thought like that, how everything was nothing more than a tool to be used at their whim and tossed aside without a moment's notice. No, you're wrong, defied Naruto. They have names, feelings, and most certainly they are not tools. Right on, Naruto, replied B. Hachibi-sama is my other brother. The biju aren't tools, unlike you old fools, Bakayaro Koniyaro. Be that as it may, that still doesn't mean that you have anything to back up your claim regarding this, Jubi, said the Mizukage. Last I checked, there were only 9 biju. The Mizukage relaxed his posture before reaching for his hat in the middle of the table. As nice as it was to converse with you all again, I have matters that are more important than some myths and fairy tales. You mean like that disgusting civil war that you're still dragging your country through? Asked A. As Kazekage Dono said, I am a cage. And the safety of my people take priority over your issues. Akatsuki has yet to present themselves as a threat to Kirigakure, stated the Mizukage. However, I can assure you that the threat my nation faces from these traitors is most real to the safety of my people. Are you referring to the same people you targeted for possessing a bloodline that was beyond their control? Are you referring to the families whose lives were torn apart as a result of your civil war? Are you referring to the children who every year as a result of that barbaric graduation ritual? Or are you referring to the people who share your same twisted sense of a perfect village? Questioned Tsunade. Hokage Dono, how I conduct business in my nation is of my concern. However, it has come to my attention that you and Reikage Dono have been aiding these threats to my village. So why should I work with someone who seeks to undermine me? Mentioned Yagura. But, I like to think of myself as a reasonable person, so I'll agree to work with you under the condition that you surrender not only Momoiki Zabuza and the Kubakiri Bocho but also all of those who deserted their country when asked to serve their cages will. Why? Just so you can continue with your ruthless genocide. Growled the Reikage. So, this was the price of Kirigakure's cooperation in the efforts of combating Akatsuki. From Konoha, Momoiki Zabuza and Yuki Haku, 2 jonin of the village who have proven their loyalties over the past years. Looking over at the Reikage, it was also apparent that Kumogakure had gained some new citizens as a result of the fleeing bloodline-bearing clans from Kirigakure's civil war. I apologize, Mizukage Dono, if you are unfamiliar with how we do things in Konoha, said Tsunade. Unlike you, we value the contributions of all our shinobi, bloodline bearing or not. How about you, Reikage Dono? That has to be the most ridiculous demand I've ever heard, replied A. These deserters have proven themselves as valuable assets of Kumogakure and I refuse to bow to such demands. I see. Then unless my requests are met, I'm afraid I simply cannot spare any resources to assist in combating Akatsuki, said Yagura. While it appears as if Konohagakure, Sunagakure, and Kumogakure have reached a common understanding regarding the threat posed by Akatsuki, what is your answer, Tsuchikage Dono? Asked Mifune. Don't bother, replied A. Based on his words, it seems the old fence-sitter has not budged from his ancient ways. To rely on other villagers to solve one's problems only signals a village's decline, said Onoki. However, I would be willing to offer Awagakure's assistance. My price is much fairer than Mizukage Dono's. Onoki's eyes shifted to a certain orange-clad Jinchuriki and everyone saw it. Absolutely not. No. Ridiculous, shouted A, Gaara, and Tsunade in unison. Are you going to allow a decades-old grudge cloud your judgment? Asked Gaara. If it means you'll stop attacking my friends, then. No. Naruto, stopped Tsunade, knowing exactly what Naruto was thinking. Even if he had a way to get out of it, she wouldn't allow him to just hand himself over to Onoki like that, all for the sake of satisfying the Tsuchikage. I think it's clear where the Tsuchikage's loyalties lie, and I will not a single one of my shinobi to appease him. So that is your answer then? Asked the Tsuchikage. Very well then. It seems as if I've wasted enough time amongst children. I motion we bring a close to this rather unproductive summit, unless there are any other issues to be discussed. As no one else spoke up, Mifune proceeded with the motion to bring the summit to a close. The Mizukage was the first to depart, accompanied by what appeared to be 2 of the remaining 7 swordsmen. One was a man that bore a striking resemblance to Sugetsu, and the other was actually a woman with dark reddish hair where 2 strands shot upwards, similar to rabbit ears. Both had bandaged swords on their backs. As the old Tsuchikage stood up from his chair, an audible crack could be heard echoing throughout the room. Gagh, my back. Gramps, shouted Kuritsuchi, the Tsuchikage's bodyguard and granddaughter. She and Onoki's second bodyguard, Akatsuki, carried their aging Kage out of the meeting. It was after the conference that the shinobi from Konoha, Suna, and Kumo had relocated to a much smaller and private room to discuss a few matters regarding Akatsuki as per the Reikage's request. A knock was heard on the door just before they could begin speaking, and Mifune stepped in. And then there were 3. So, what say you, Konoha, Suna, Kumo, will the 3 of you join forces to eliminate the threat of Akatsuki? Sunagakure and Konoha have already been working closely together regarding this matter. I think the question that needs to be asked is, Reikage Dono willing to cooperate? Asked Tsunade. If it means those bastards will pay for what they did to Yugito, then you have Kumo's full cooperation, declared A. Mifune nodded, as did Tsunade and Gaara. The Land of Iron will also assist in whatever way we can, added Mifune. Tsunade, how is your guest faring? Asked the Reikage. To say Abiki is intrigued by this one is an understatement, said Tsunade. Unfortunately, our captive has a number of mental barriers that are even giving Yamanaka and Oiki a run for his money. However, we've managed to glean some information, but other pieces such as Akatsuki's main headquarters and the idini of the leader remain hidden. I have our spymaster currently looking into some of the leads provided. I also have the details regarding Morino Abiki's and Yamanaka Inoiki's investigation on me. I was going to share them with Kazekage Dono, but, if you're willing to buy the first round tonight, I supposed I could let you take a look as well. Tsunade Dono, have you managed to determine Akatsuki's goal with the Biju? Asked Mifune. From what we got off of Hidden, they're looking for what they refer to as a monopoly on war, said Tsunade. In short, they would use the Biju to start wars as they please, going from nation to nation with the only choice being surrender or obliteration. And with the Biju, they'd certainly have the capability to do such, said Gaara. Whether or not their ultimate goal is to revive the Juubi, even possessing one Biju grants Akatsuki a significant power. No, shouted Naruto as he spoke up. I won't just stand by and watch as Akatsuki drags the Biju's names through the mud like that. All they wanted was to be left alone, to live their own lives in peace. If this is allowed to happen, that will never happen. They can't be bad like everyone thinks they are, added Fu. I mean Chume, the Nanabe, can be a handful to deal with, but if there's one thing she's not, it's evil. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have so many great friends like I do now. To use them as tools of war is just disgusting. I don't know why the fabled Rikudo Sennin brought the Biju into existence, but all of the legends say he was a man of peace and coexistence, said Yugito, accompanying Darui as the Raikage's bodyguards. Perhaps it was for us and them to be partners, friends, sisters. If I am correct, you were the Jinchuriki of the Nibi, said Mifune. I thought once a Biju was extracted, the Jinchuriki-s. To see you still standing here. I have Konoha, in particular Uzumaki Naruto and Haruno Sakura, as well as the Hachibi to thank for that, said Yugito. They were the ones who brought life back to me, sealing a portion of the Hachibi's chakra into me so that I would have the chance to save Matatabi. So, the theories I've heard from my wife regarding pseudo-Jinchurikis are true then, mused Mifune. Yes, I guess that is the case, replied Yugito. But I don't plan on staying a pseudo-Jinchuriki. I will use this gift to save Matatabi, to get my sister back. If Akatsuki seeks to use them as tools of war, then the power of the Biju currently free from their control will be required to counter Akatsuki, said Mifune. Don't worry, Mifune-sensei, Kurama and I show those Akatsuki bastards what happens when they mess with family, grinned Naruto. Hachibi-sama will blow them away just like KB's raps did today, Bakayaro Konayaro, rapped B. Mifune nodded before turning to Fu. And how well do you and the Nanabe work together? She can be quite a handful. Sometimes, it's just too much, commented Fu. Flashback. From the air above, Fu gazed down, scanning the scorched desert for any sign of an opposing team. It was this time through the Chunin exams, approximately 1 year after the ones held in Kumogakure, that the remainder of the Konoha of 15 who had yet to become Chunin decided to take another S at promotions. She had been placed on a team that consisted of Kiba, Tenten, and herself. And this time, the exams were held somewhere much more, friendly. That is, if you could call Suna's Demon Desert friendly. It was then that she caught a glint of an opposing team. Sending a quick signal to her own team, she darted off towards the foreign team. It's been too long since we've seen another team, droned a Kusa ninja as he and his team ran across the barren wasteland. Yeah, keep your eyes open. They have to appear eventually, said a second Kusa ninja. Hey, do you guys want to be friends? All of a sudden, a green-haired girl appeared in front of them, hovering just a few inches above the ground. The three Kusa ninja were immediately on guard, kunai drawn. Oh, too slow. One Kusa ninja tried to S at Fu, only for her to float back out of the way. Missed me. A second Kusa ninja followed up, trying to punch Fu from behind. Tag, you're it. Fu dodged a blow by the third member of the Kusa team, tagging him on the back and attaching a chakra thread before taking off at breakneck speeds, dragging the poor ninja behind her. All the while, the green-haired Jinchuriki was letting out a cheerful laugh. See, isn't this fun? I can tell we're going to be great friends. Suddenly, an explosion engulfed Fu, knocking the bug out of the air and crashing into a quicksand trap with her newest friend. She wasn't sure where the explosion had come from, most likely an enemy team nearby, but she had bigger issues as the sand began to swallow her and the Kusa ninja she had brought along for a joyride. Despite her struggling, the sand only worked to swallow her faster. Fu. Just as her head was about to go under, she recognized the voice that belonged to her dog-loving teammate. Chome, give me a hand here. Fu immediately felt demonic chakra flood her system, giving her enough of a boost to break free of the sand trap as she pulled herself and the still tethered Kusa ninja out of the sand. However, she only wanted a little chakra, just enough to break free of the sand. But the three-tailed cloak that was forming told a different story. Chome, what are you doing? Oh come on, I just want to play a little too. Just a little more. Besides, I called some friends to the party. Friends. Fu was broken out of her conversation with her inner demon as dozens of giant scorpions and sandworms erupted from the ground beneath them. See, it's like one big party. In Fu's stupor, a fourth tail began to emerge as the Nanabe tried to stretch her influence and senses. It was then that her mind lost it and was lost in the boundless energy of the Nanabe, only wanting to stretch her wings and have a little fun. Tenten, Kiba, and the three Kusa ninja spent the better part of the next hour running for their lives, dodging giant insect parts, and trying to figure out a way to get Fu to calm down. End flashback. She's just got so much energy, it's just so crazy, absurd, hyper, psycho. Naruto at an all-you-can-eat ramen buffet. Be on the verge of his next breakout hit. Kurama and Gyuki both sweat dropped, unable to agree which of them was actually worse, or even if they wanted to delve deeper into that thought. Fu was right. Chume was always the most energetic of the Biju, to put it lightly. Even Naruto paled. He knew he had a freakishly large amount of energy, but even he had to admit Fu had him beat in that category. To think that the Nanabi only enhanced that, he shivered at the thought. The last time I tried to utilize Chume's power, I was fine until I entered what Naruto-kun calls a version 2 cloak. After that, I don't remember what happened, but my team said it wasn't pretty, said Fu. It's not that the Nanabi was evil or wanted to take over Fu, she just hated being caged. Naruto had taken a look at Fu's seal, and while it wasn't as complex as his, the seal was still solid. Chume couldn't influence Fu unless Fu directly called on her chakra. However, the minute Chume would get a sniff of the outside, the energetic bug couldn't help it anymore. Naruto was currently trying to figure out a way to release the seal and help the two, but seeing as Fu's seal was unfamiliar to him, he had to try and make a key for it from scratch, another project for his already growing project pile. Gaara, how's Shukaku been in that new seal? Asked Naruto. I don't know how to explain it, said Gaara. I've tried communicating with him a few times, but every time I approach him, he's huddled in the far corner of his cage, muttering something along the lines of, "Father wouldn't want you to K," and, "But K all you know." Flashback. Shukaku called out Gaara as he walked the sandy corridor of his seal. "You must K, I need you to K. But father said we should stop K." Shukaku asked Gaara as he approached the golden cage that held Shukaku. Immediately, Shukaku thrashed against the cage, trying to lash out at Gaara. "Let me out, I must K." Immediately, Shukaku recoiled into the far corner of his cage, cowering in fear. I'm sorry. I shouldn't K, father wouldn't want me to K. But it's all you know. You must K. But K is wrong. No. We must K all of them. They must pay for locking US away. For hating US. For trying to end US. But they've changed. They no longer look at us with hateful looks. Lies. They're all liars. We can only trust in ourselves. Gaara took a few steps back from the cage, not wanting to deal with the Ichibi's psychotic rants anymore. End flashback. Ever since you fixed the seal, the Ichibi's been crazier than ever, said Gaara. I can't begin to make sense of his rambling. I'm just glad the new seal allows me to block him out, or else I fear I would have gone insane by now. And to think he actually could get crazier, just great, groaned Kurama. It is imperative that all four of you learn how to work side by side with your Biju partners. That duty will fall on the shoulders of the two of you, Uzumaki Naruto, KB, said Mifune. Do you all agree, fellow cages? Tsunade and Gaara nodded in agreement as the A spoke. Kumogakure has a sacred training ground that we've used to hone the Jinchuriki's powers throughout the generations. It'll take some time to prepare, but once I am certain it is secure, then I might be willing to allow the Jinchurikis to train there. Very well, said Mifune. While I feel much progress has been made today, I must apologize if the outcomes of this summit did not meet your expectations, Reikage Dono. No, this summit told me everything. The real reason I called this summit was determine where Akatsuki could be hiding, said A. Someone supporting them from the shadows. And I now have an idea who. Surely you're not implying that Kirigakure or Iwagakure are working with Akatsuki? Exclaimed Tsunade. That full Onoki has a history of using the Akatsuki, said the Reikage. Who's to say they're not using him? As for the Mizukage, even you know what I'm referring to, Tsunade. Besides that book Kakashi picked up, the last time we got any relevant information regarding Kirigakure was when we took in Momoiki Zabuza and Yuki Haku. And even that information was years old, said Tsunade. A few small bits of information whenever we took in some refuge clans, but nothing that I would consider relevant, said A. Kirigakure's secrecy has definitely led to a lot of questions about the secretive nation. So long as there's a place that doesn't openly oppose the Akatsuki, it will be incredibly difficult to eliminate them completely, said Gaara. But we can't just go in and attack other countries on a whim that Akatsuki may be in there, reasoned Tsunade. If what Akatsuki wants is a monopoly on war, then us starting one because of them would be playing right into their hands. And what if undeniable evidence comes forth that proves Iwa, Kiri, or even a smaller nation is in leagues with Akatsuki? Asked A. Would you sit back and let Akatsuki conduct their operations from the shelter of a neighboring country? I sure as hell wouldn't. No, I wouldn't either. However, until that undeniable proof comes forth, I will not encroach on another nation's sovereignty, said Tsunade. And in the event this proof does come forth, a full-scale war may not the best option. I do have to agree with Tsunade Dono on this, Reikage Dono, said Gaara. Suna will not participate in the invasion of another nation unless there is conclusive evidence that they are working with Akatsuki. I feel our best option right now is to bolster not only our own defenses against Akatsuki, but also our intelligence operations within other nations. That way, we will be better prepared should Akatsuki attack us, and it will allow us to determine who Akatsuki is working with. Once we've analyzed who they're working with and what the scenario is, then we can best formulate a plan of attack. Very well, relented A. Are we in agreement that any information collected regarding Akatsuki will be shared openly? Both Tsunade and Gaara nodded to A's request. Giving a quick bow to his sensei, Naruto exited Mifune's study at the Shogun's private residence. This summit had been a blessing to the young Uzumaki head, as Naruto had a number of questions pertaining to the Uzumaki blades and their sentience. Thankfully, Mifune was able to point him in the right direction, and after their conversation, and Naruto knew exactly what Mifune was referring to. He had briefly glanced over the scroll during his training with Jiraiya, but the regression seal, Uzumaki demonic sealing arts, futon, Rasengan, Kyuubi boot camp, and sage training preoccupied much of his time. Once he got to Konoha, he knew it was time to delve deeper into the next of the secret Uzumaki clan techniques. Naruto made sure to say hi to Keirai, Hiro, and the rest of his family in the Land of Iron before heading back to the inn where they were staying, as Tsunade wanted to leave at first light the following morning. So we'll see you in about a month, Naruto? Asked Hiro. Huh, wait, what's going on in a month? Asked Naruto. Geez, did you take one too many blows to the head from Gisama again? Scoffed Hiro. Another man who Naruto recognized as Hiro's father, Uzumaki Hiroto. Unfortunately, Hiroto also lacked the signature red hair, something that he, Hiro, and Naruto had all grumbled about together in the past. Keiko, Hiroto's sister, was the lucky one in the family, as she and her children were blessed with Uzumaki hair. Hiroto was a well-built man that stood at an impressive 190 centimeters, 6 feet 3, with the same gray-colored hair as his father and son, tied in a top knot as well. A few scars were visible on his face, indicating that this man was an experienced warrior, yet Naruto very well knew this guy loved a good joke. You didn't think we'd miss the birthday of our clan, would you? Birthday, that's right. Naruto remembered that his birthday was only a month away, and that the day where he could officially take the lure of Uzumaki clan head was coming up quick. So, you guys are all coming to Konoha then? Of course, for a few days at least. We'll show Konoha just how we party, Uzumaki style. Back in Konoha, Tsunade had returned to relieve Shikaku from the troublesome paperwork. Now, it would be troublesome if there was a massive pile of paperwork still sitting on the desk, but when Tsunade entered her office, Shikaku was pleasantly napping in an office that was devoid of the mountains of paperwork she had left in there. Shikaku! Shouted Tsunade, waking the sleeping Nara. Rather than be startled, the Jonin commander let out a long yawn. How did you? What happened to all the paperwork? Business was rather slow during your absence, Hokage-sama. Without a constant flow of paperwork to feed the monster, it's actually not as troublesome as it looks, replied Shikaku. There's a small stack that I felt required your direct attention. From behind Tsunade, Naruto shot the Nara a questioning look, which was returned with a sly smile. While Shikaku's answer was simple, it was believable, and it was a lie. However, a simple message was exchanged in their little wordless conversation. The secret to the paperwork nightmare was far too valuable of a secret to be just given away. How did the summit go? Asked Shikaku as Kakashi, Yamato, and Fu proceeded into the office, also accompanied by Shizune and Sakura. While Shizune was present due to her being Tsunade's assistant, Sakura was also brought along because any potential punishments she faced from saving Yugito hung by the outcomes of this summit. As Tsunade explained to Shikaku, Shizune, and Sakura what had transpired at the summit, wanting the opinion of Konoha's sharpest mind. While the prospect of having Kumo assist us in combating Akatsuki is a pleasant surprise, it's troubling to think that Iwagakure or Kirigakure could potentially be working with Akatsuki, said Shikaku. I'll begin drafting a plan on how to proceed gathering valuable information on those two. Does it appear Kumogakure sincere in their attempts to improve relations with us? It's a little early to say, but based on the intel we exchanged regarding Akatsuki and Kirigakure, it seems like they're willing to make an effort, said Tsunade. At the very least, Kumogakure's attention is no longer on us. Speaking of which, Uzumaki Naruto, Haruno Sakura. Both Naruto and Sakura shot to attention. While your actions performed were well outside the scope of your mission at the time, I have to admit that they have significantly eased our relations with Kumogakure, not to mention 3 members out of Akatsuki were either eliminated or captured, said Tsunade. While it's still hard to overlook the transgression of stepping outside of my authority, I can let it slide for now with a warning. However, should this come back and bite me in the A, it's the 2 of you who will be stuck trying to clean up any mess. Understood. Both Naruto and Sakura nodded at their Hokage. Good. The 2 of you will be eligible to resume mission duty starting tomorrow. Now, everyone is dismissed. As everyone filed out of the office, Sakura remained. Shosho, there's something I need to discuss with you, said Sakura. Can it wait? I'm sorry but I've got an important meeting, said Tsunade. I suppose. It's just about Uchiha Itachi. Has anything been done to the body yet? Sakura shook her head, indicating, no. Okay, I'll be down to the hospital morgue once I'm done to see what it is you need to discuss. Actually, I think she can stay for this. It might be for the best. Turning around, Tsunade noticed her teammate sitting on the edge of the window to her office, not even bothering to use the door like a normal person. Walking from the tower late in the afternoon, Naruto was happily humming away. The fact that he was no longer on village arrest was good news, as now he could go to his dad's training ground and work on his project regarding letting Kurama out. However, that would have to wait for tomorrow as his stomach had better ideas. Unfortunately, when he tried to take off towards Ichiraku, he found himself being held in place as a pair of arms wrapped around him and pulled the person close against his back. Naruto-kun, chirped Hinata. Hinata-chan, replied Naruto. What's got you in such a good mood? You here now after being away for almost 2 weeks, chirped Hinata. I was afraid I'd have to wait even longer to see you. Naruto had a suspicion about what that meant as he and Hinata walked towards Naruto's favorite ramen bar. Does this mean you have a mission? Asked Naruto. Maybe. Akamaru was cleared just the other day, said Hinata. I know we'll be getting a mission tomorrow, but I don't know who's going and who will be on standby. Speaking of which, how's Kiba doing? How's Akamaru? Hana-san just cleared Akamaru the other day, replied Hinata. Yamato Teiko said we'd be getting a C rank. Kiba wasn't too happy and insisted we get a B rank or higher. It took some convincing to get him to accept a C rank. Hey, that's Kiba for you, said Naruto. A C rank might not sound like much, but it's more of a way to see how Akamaru's doing, completed Naruto. Anyways, here's hoping you're not on the mission. Why don't you want me go? Because it'd be lonely without you, cried Naruto, using his best impression of the puppy dog eyes no jutsu. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura-chan, team, and Sai all have a mission they're leaving for tomorrow and I'm stuck on standby. Hinata could tell Naruto wasn't too happy. With the exception of the summit, Naruto had been confined to the village for the past month and even she could tell he was eager for a mission. You know, our last mission while you were at the summit involved us tracking a group of missing ninja who had been harassing a village not too far from the Land of Waves, said Hinata as she tried to move the conversation along with her sulking boyfriend. Really? Wow, the Land of Waves. I wonder how Inari, Tazuna, and Tsunami are doing, mused Naruto. He hadn't been to the Land of Waves ever since his first C-rank mission. That's right. The Land of Waves was where your first real mission was, said Hinata. I haven't been there, but Shino went there on a mission a few years back, although he didn't say much besides the mission went well. Just like Shino, not much of a talker, said Naruto. Perhaps I would talk more if my comrades took more of an interest in getting to know me. Naruto immediately shot to attention. He could have sworn he and Hinata were the only ones at Ichiraku Ramen. Turning around, Naruto came face to face with Shino, sitting in the chair next to him and slurping down a bowl of ramen. Shino, what are you doing here? It is obvious. I am here eating dinner, said Shino. No, that's not what I mean. I thought it was just me and Hinata-chan. I've been here since before the two of you arrived, replied Shino. Are you saying you didn't notice me? A look of gloom overtook Shino's face as Naruto began sweating. No, I didn't, So, you didn't notice me, sulked Shino as he crawled into a nearby corner to brood about being forgotten. While Naruto was busy trying to find a way out of this situation, Hinata went over to the sulking Shino and began patting him on the back in comfort. Hyuga household. That's enough for today, Neji, said Hiashi, bowing to his student. The two walked over towards the porch where 2 cups of hot tea were waiting for them, courtesy of Hinata before she took off to find a certain someone. After taking a sip from his cup, Hiashi spoke again. I spoke with the elders today regarding your challenge. It will be held on the 1st of October, approximately 1 month from now. The one you will be fighting is Iroh's son, Kenjo. Even as a Hyuga who rarely let emotions show, Neji was angry at Iroh for backing out. However, that didn't mean he didn't want to defeat Kenjo either, especially after the Chunin exams 3 years ago. Still, while Hyuga Shinji wasn't that capable of a fighter, Kenjo was. The son of the Hyuga elder was of Jonin rank amongst the village's reserves and had made quite a name for himself back during the Third Shinobi War. You can't hide it, Neji, said Hiashi. You're a Hyuga and you're good at concealing your emotions, but I know you're angry. Just accept the fact that Kenjo is your opponent and not Iroh. In fact, I expected this from the very beginning. As Neji just sat there, Hiashi continued. Iroh's getting old. His skills nowhere near where it used to be. However, Kenjo is still relatively young and in good shape. Along with the fact that they were the ones who requested this much time for preparation, it proves that they're actually taking this seriously. Now that we know who your opponent is, how do you plan to win? The surprise of not having the seal will only do so much. How do you plan to break through the techniques he knows? His chitin is known as the quickest in the clan, something he honed in the Third War. He can raise that defense in a moment's notice. I should know better than anyone that the chitin is not impenetrable, said Neji. And once I break it, I'll pave the way for the entire clan to come together as one family. Awagakur, a few days after the Tsuchikage left for the summit. Roshi, Jonin of Awagakur and Jinchuriki of the Yonbi, had just left a meeting with the Tsuchikage as the elderly Kage returned from the summit. To say he was actually mad at Onoki was an understatement. The Namikaze boy who had taken his best friend away from him was present at the meeting and the old fence-sitter only made one half-hearted attempt at getting retribution on Konoha and the Namikaze. While he was loyal to Awagakur, that didn't mean he didn't have his criticisms about the way things were ran. Onoki was growing old and with age came wear. Was the Tsuchikage's rock-hard wool wearing away, revealing something softer underneath? Onoki had mentioned something about an opportunity presenting itself, yet the opportunity was let to slip from his grasp. However, Roshi was snapped from his thoughts as he felt a presence confront him. Looking up, he saw a man on top of a building with medium-length blonde hair that swept over half of his face. Before he could say or do anything else, a massive explosion rocked the block where he was. Kirigakure. Yagura sat alone in his office, having just returned from the summit. How did the summit go? A voice called from behind Yagura. About as expected. Konoha and Suna are together and Kumo appears to be joining them, however the trust between Kumo and the other two is fragile at best, said Yagura. And Iwa, still consumed by the hatred of the past. Good. So long as the villagers continue their squabbling, then we will proceed as planned. Understood, Madara-sama. Omake, my precious. Gaara walked up to Shukaku's cage, only to see the overgrown tanuki hunched over in the far corner. Before the young Kazekage could take another step, Shukaku cried out. Go away, cried Shukaku. Why you yell at master, Shukaku? Because he stole it from us. Gollum, what did I steal from you? Gaara asked, confused once again at Shukaku's rambling. Shukaku skulked towards the edge of the cage, raising his head so he was eye to eye with Gaara. My precious. Shukaku's cry was so great that it forced Gaara from his mindscape. As the Kazekage opened his eyes in his office, he sighed. It looks like he wasn't getting anywhere with the Ichibi today. And what was Shukaku rambling about this time? What was a precious? As Gaara stood up, his hand brushed against his pocket and he felt it, a small mass inside. What's this? The Kazekage said as he reached into his pocket to pull out a small glint of gold. A ring. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.